Picture this. A small, humble business standing proud, its shelves filled with bold statements, patriotic colors, and a message that's impossible to ignore. But one day, this peaceful store finds itself under attack. Not for what it sells, but for what it stands for. Now, imagine being the owner, watching as your hard work is defaced, as hate spills through the walls of your livelihood. This isn't just a story about a store, it's about resilience, unity, and a twist you'll never see coming. Today, we're diving into the shocking story of a pro-Trump t-shirt store that became the target of relentless racist attacks. But let me tell you, the resolution to this tale? It's something you won't believe. But before we dive in, let me ask you this. Where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Let me take you to a quiet street in a small town, a place where everyone knows your name and businesses thrive on a handshake and a smile. Nestled here among the familiar faces is a modest t-shirt store. But this isn't just any store, it's a family-owned business, built from the ground up, selling more than just merchandise. Inside, rows of vibrant pro-Trump t-shirts line the walls, each one a bold statement of belief, freedom, and pride. But beyond the slogans and designs lies something even more powerful, a story of passion, perseverance, and unwavering dedication. The owner, a father, a husband, and a proud American, poured his heart and soul into the store. For him, it wasn't just about selling t-shirts, it was about standing for something. This shop became a beacon of free speech and expression, a place where people could feel seen, heard, and proud. The owner believed in the power of community, always lending a hand to neighbors in need, always ready with a kind word and a warm smile. But dreams like these, they can become targets. And for this small business, what began as a symbol of pride and freedom soon found itself at the center of an unimaginable storm. It started one quiet morning. The owner arrived at his store as he always did, ready to welcome another day of hard work and friendly faces. But something was different this time. As he stepped closer, his heart sank. There, scrawled across the once pristine exterior, was hateful graffiti. Words meant to wound, phrases dripping with malice, splashed in bold, angry colors for everyone to see. He froze, staring at the vandalism. This wasn't just an attack on a building, it was an attack on him, his beliefs, and everything his store represented. The community was stunned. People gathered, whispering in disbelief, wondering how such hatred could find its way to their small town. But as unsettling as it was, no one could have predicted what was coming next. Days later, it escalated. Late one evening, when the streets were empty and the town was asleep, the sound of shattering glass ripped through the silence. The store's front windows, smashed into jagged shards, scattered across the floor. The owner, now more determined than ever to stand his ground, cleaned up the mess. He repaired what he could and reopened the next morning with a brave face. But behind the smiles he gave his customers, his heart was heavy. The attacks didn't stop. They became bolder. Verbal threats hurled at the staff, phone calls filled with insults and warnings, anonymous notes left at the door demanding the store shut down or else. And then came the protests. Crowds gathered outside, holding signs, chanting slogans, and blocking the entrance. What was once a peaceful symbol of free speech had become a battleground. Customers hesitated to come in. Neighbors began to keep their distance, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. For the owner, it was more than just vandalism or protests. It was personal. Every slur, every broken window, every hateful word, each one cut deeper than the last. This wasn't just about politics anymore. This was about him, his family, his dreams. He was heartbroken. He had built this store with his own two hands, fueled by a vision of hope and pride. And now it felt like everything he stood for was being torn apart, piece by piece. But even in his darkest moments, he didn't give up. He refused to back down. Because deep down, he believed that this store wasn't just his. It belonged to the community. And no amount of hate was going to take that away. What he didn't know was that the storm was far from over. The attacks would only grow more vicious. But so would something else. Something no one could have foreseen. Stay with me, because what happens next is a twist that will leave you speechless. In the days that followed, something began to stir. The hateful attacks may have shaken the store's foundation, but they also awakened the community. Some people couldn't stand idly by. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers stepped forward to show their support. They stopped by to purchase t-shirts, shared encouraging words with the owner, and left messages of hope scrawled on sticky notes stuck to the shattered windows. But not everyone was so brave. Others stayed silent. They passed the store without a word, their heads down, their steps hurried. Fear kept them quiet. Fear of being judged, fear of becoming targets themselves. And who could blame them? The air was thick with tension. Lines were being drawn. People whispered behind closed doors, wondering which side their neighbors stood on. It wasn't just a store under siege, it felt like the entire town was on edge. The attacks didn't stop. If anything, they grew bolder. Graffiti reappeared as quickly as it was cleaned. Threats became more personal, more direct. The owner, despite his best efforts to stay positive, couldn't hide the strain. He tried to hold his head high, to keep serving his customers, but every day the weight on his shoulders grew heavier. And yet, he refused to fight back. No angry outbursts, no retaliation, just quiet resilience, a determination to stand his ground without sinking to their level. But how much can one person take? How far would you go to defend your beliefs, even when the odds seem stacked against you? Because the truth is, the attacks were only half the story. What was happening behind the scenes was something no one could have predicted. The community wasn't just divided, it was being tested. And as the pressure mounted, the cracks would either break them apart or reveal something extraordinary. Just when it seemed like the darkness would never lift, an unexpected figure stepped into the spotlight. They weren't a loyal customer. They weren't even someone who agreed with the store's message. In fact, this person had been a vocal critic of its politics, a staunch opponent who had once stood on the other side of the ideological divide. And yet, something about the relentless hate, the unprovoked attacks, struck a chord deep within them. It wasn't about agreeing or disagreeing anymore. It was about something bigger, something that mattered more than politics. This former critic made a bold decision. They organized a community meeting, not to debate, not to argue, but to make a stand. A stand for something everyone could agree on: the right to express oneself, the value of unity, and the need to protect what makes a community strong. The meeting was simple but powerful. They didn't ask people to support the store's politics. Instead, they made an emotional plea. This isn't about t-shirts. This is about standing up against hate. This is about supporting each other even when we don't agree. Because if we let this store fall, what's next? Where does it end? The words echoed through the room, stirring something in those who had gathered. It was a moment of truth. The town had been divided for too long, torn apart by fear and anger. But the question remained, would people rise above their differences? Would they show up to support the store, not for what it sold, but for what it represented? Or would the hate continue to spread, driving an even deeper wedge between neighbors, friends, and families? As the meeting ended and the crowd dispersed, the answer was unclear. The stage was set. The community had a choice to make. What happened next would change everything. And then it happened. Early one morning, as the owner unlocked the door to his battered store, he was greeted by a sight that stopped him in his tracks. Not vandals, not protesters, but people. Hundreds of them. Men, women, children, young and old. People from all walks of life standing together in solidarity. Some brought paint and brushes to cover the hateful graffiti. Others carried tools to repair the shattered windows. Many came with nothing more than their presence, a silent yet powerful show of support. There were faces the owner recognized, longtime customers and loyal friends. But there were just as many unfamiliar faces, people he never thought would step foot near his store, all united for one reason: to protect what mattered most. As the hours passed, the street transformed. The hateful words disappeared under fresh coats of paint. The broken glass was replaced with new gleaming windows. What was once a symbol of division was slowly being rebuilt. not just with tools, but with love and determination. And then, as the sun began to set, the owner stepped forward. He looked out at the crowd, his voice trembling with emotion. "I don't have the words to thank you all," he began. "This isn't about politics. This isn't about sides. This is about standing together as a community. You've reminded all of us, that we're stronger together. No matter our differences, we can always choose kindness, respect, and understanding." Tears streamed down his face as he spoke, and in that moment, no one cared about t-shirts or slogans. They weren't gathered there because of what the store sold. They were there because of what it now stood for: resilience, unity, and hope. What began as a story of division turned into something extraordinary, a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, kindness can light the way. Because when people come together, when they choose to see beyond their differences, they have the power to rebuild not just a store, but an entire community. And this was one of those moments, a moment that proved hate may be loud, but love and understanding will always echo louder. But just when it seemed like the story had reached its conclusion, something unexpected happened. Something no one saw coming. One of the attackers, someone who had been the part of the hateful actions that started it all, stepped forward. Not with more anger, not with more destruction, but with something far more shocking: an apology. In front of a crowd gathered at the store, they spoke with trembling words. They admitted to their actions, confessed to being fueled by fear and misunderstanding, and shared how watching the community come together had changed them. "I was wrong," they said. "I see that now. What I did wasn't just hurtful, it was wrong. Seeing people stand up for each other, seeing kindness overpower anger, it made me realize the harm I caused." The crowd fell silent. All eyes turned to the store's owner, waiting to see how he would respond. Would he lash out? Would he reject the apology? Instead, he did something that left everyone speechless. He forgave them. "I accept your apology," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We can't change the past, but we can choose to move forward. Hate won't fix anything. Forgiveness and understanding are the only way to heal." The moment was nothing short of extraordinary. What had started as an act of division had come full circle. A community once fractured by fear and hate had been brought together by resilience and compassion. And in that moment, everyone watching realized something profound. Unity isn't about agreeing on everything. It's about standing together, even when it's hard. It's about seeing each other as people, not enemies. This wasn't just the resolution of a story. It was a lesson for all of us. A reminder that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a chance for redemption, forgiveness, and a brighter path forward. And so, this wasn't just the story of a store under attack. It wasn't just about t-shirts or politics. It was about something much deeper, something that resonates far beyond one small business. It was about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. It was about choosing unity over hate, compassion over division, and understanding over fear. This story reminds us all that the lines that divide us are not as strong as the bonds that can unite us, if we let them. But it also leaves us with a question: how can we in our own communities support freedom of expression? How can we stand together even when we disagree? Because at the end of the day, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about recognizing the humanity in one another and choosing to build bridges instead of walls. Now, it's your turn. What do you think? How can we all do our part to stand up for unity and understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because together we can create a world where love always speaks louder than hate.